Hey guys, so today we're going to wrap up our rational numbers by rounding out with multiplying and dividing decimals. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer just because multiplying and dividing can sometimes take a longer time to do, so just hang tight with me and I'll try to make it as fast as possible. So, when we multiply decimals, it says set up the problem without the decimal, multiply, count the decimal places in both factors. The factors are the numbers that are being multiplied together, and then insert the decimal in that says quotient, and it should definitely say product. So we're going to cross that off and put product. Okay, so the product is the solution when you're multiplying two numbers together, in case you guys needed a reminder on that. So the first one we have, I know it says step 1 to set up the problem without the decimal. I personally like keeping it in there, and then I'll show you what I do. So the first one we have 1.26 times 0.5. So remember that when we are multiplying our decimals, you do not need to line up the decimal. Do not line them up. You're making more work for yourself because you're adding more numbers. So what I like to do is I like to count how many numbers. So kind of like what's going on up here, I like to go, I have 2 here, I have 1 here, so I know I have 3 total that I need to make sure I move it in when I'm multiplying. So we have 6 times 5, which is 30. We have 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 3 is 13. And then 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So now that I have this little 3 here, I know that I need to move my decimal 3 times. So I'm going to move it once, twice, 3 times, and my solution is going to be 0.63. So let's try again with the second one, and then you guys are going to do 3 and 4 on your own. So for the second one, I'm going to have 93.2 times 28. Again, you do not have to line up the decimal when we are multiplying, only when we add and subtract. So 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 5, carry the 2. And then 2 times 9 is going, or I'm sorry, not 2 times 9. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 2 is 74. So then, plus, have our little space saver. Going to cross those out. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. And 9 times 2 is 18. So we're going to add these numbers together. So we have 6, 9, 10, 15, 16, and another one for 2. So here we have 1 decimal here, and we have 0 decimals here, so we only need to move our decimal in one place. So when we move it in one place, your answer should be 2,609.6. Sorry, I had to write in the space. So go ahead and pause the video now and try to do the third example. It would probably be helpful if you could fully see it. So it's supposed to be 2.34 times 0.06. So go ahead and pause it and work that out now. Okay, so the correct answer should have been 0.1404. If you guys don't put that 0 in front of the decimal, it's fine, and if you just left it as 0.1404, that's great too. So when we multiply, we have 2 decimals in the first factor, 2 decimals in the second one, so that means I have to move it in a total of 4 times. So once you multiply, this 0 is going to make everything 0, so I didn't multiply that out. I just multiplied out the 6 because it's not going to change anything if you multiply out the 0. So once we multiply those together, I got 1,404, and then, like I said, I moved my decimal 4 places to get 0.1404. So if you got it right, great job. Now go ahead and pause your video and solve for problem number 4. Problem number 4, I know the decimals can be hard to see. It should be 264.2 times 8.5. So go ahead, pause the video, and work that one out. Okay, so sorry, my work's kind of all over the place. So I started off where it says your turn, and I did 264.2 times 8.5. So I multiplied out my 5, and I got 13,210. And then I multiplied out my 8. I put my 0 for my placeholder. And when I multiplied out my 8, I got 211,360. When I added those together, I got 224,570. And since I have one decimal in the first factor, one decimal in the second factor, that means I have 2 in my product. So over here, I moved it over twice, and the correct answer should have been 2,245.7. If you put 0.70, that's great too. It's all the same thing. All right, next we're going to get started with dividing decimals. All right, so for dividing decimals, what we have is you move the decimal in the divisor, and the divisor is the number on the outside of your house, and I'm going to call it a house a lot. Like, for example, up here, this is what I call the house. So the divisor is the number outside of the house, and then the dividend, which is the next number we're about to talk about, goes inside of the house. So the divisor is what's doing the dividing, and the dividend is what's being divided. All right, so then you move the decimal and the number outside of the house, the divisor, and then you move the decimal and the dividend, which is the number inside of the house, the same number. So whatever you do to the outside, you have to do to the inside. Then you bring the decimal point up to the quotient, which is just a fancy word for the answer, and then you divide like normal. So, hold on. Alright, so for example, we will do the first one together. Whatever number comes in front is the one that's being divided, so the one that goes inside of the house, and the second number is what you're dividing by. So in this case, I would set number 1 up as 0.5 divided by 38.5. So since I have one decimal outside of the house, you can't have any decimals outside of the house, and then whatever you do to the inside, or whatever you do to the outside, you have to do to the inside. And then we're going to put it right on top of our roof. So now we're really just taking 385 and dividing it by 5. So 5 can't go into 3, but 5 can go into 38 7 times, which is 35, and we subtract that, bring down our 5, so now we have 5 divided by 30, or 35 divided by 5 again, which is another 7, and then we have nothing left, so we're done dividing. So the correct solution for the first one should be 77. All right, and then for the next one, we have 151.2 being divided by 42, it looks like. Yeah, so it's 42. So since that number outside of my house is already a whole number, we don't have to move anything. We're just going to carry this decimal straight up top. There we go. All right. So 42 can't go into 1, 42 can't go into 15, but 42 can go in to 151 3 times. So then we're going to take away 126. And when you subtract those, you get 25. And you bring down your 2. And then 42 goes into 252 6 times. And that's perfectly even. So we don't have a remainder left. Oh, whoops. So we don't have a remainder left. So your correct answer for number 2 should just be 3.6. Okay, so now that you've seen 2 of my examples, go ahead and pause your video and start practicing on example 3. We'll talk about it, and then we'll do example 4, and then we'll be done. Okay, so when you did 23.85 divided by 9, it's very similar to the second example we did. Since we have a whole number outside of our house, we don't have to worry about moving our decimal because we already have a whole number. So we just carry our decimal straight up on our roof. And then 9 goes into 23 one time, so then we subtract 18, and we get 5. We bring down our 8. 9 can go into 58 6 times, goes in at 6 times, so then we do 58 minus 54, and we get 4. And we bring down our 5, and 9 goes into 45 5 times, so then we have a 5. And then that it goes in there perfectly. I know my scribble scrabble kind of down here, but that's supposed to be 45 minus 45 gives you 0, meaning that we are done dividing. All right, so go ahead. So the correct answer that you should have gotten is 1.65. So go ahead and pause your video to do example number 4. Example number 4, I know it's covered up. It is 2.34 divided by 7.8. That looks bad too. Sorry. So let's try it again. 2.34 divided by 7.8. Okay, now for real, go ahead, pause your videos, work through the problem, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so if you finished dividing those correctly, you should have gotten 0.3 as your answer, and it goes into there, 78 goes into 234 perfectly 3 times, so we don't have any other numbers. Now, in case you're wondering, how does she know, like, how does she pick 3? So I think of factors of 8 that end in 4. Since it can't go in, 78 can't go into 2, it can't go into 23, so it has to go into 234. And since this last number is a 4, I start thinking of factors of 8 that end in 4. So, like, you have 8, you have 16. Well, I guess they're not factors, multiples. So you have 8, you have 16, and then I know that 3 is 24. So then I tested it out, and I did 78 times 3, and it's 234. So that's how I ended up with 0.3. Anyways, so now you know for class tomorrow how to multiply and divide fractions. We know that you guys have done this before, but as I've said in previous videos, it is a fundamental skill to be successful this year in 7th grade. Come to class with your questions, your notes, anything that you want to comment on. Bring it to the table tomorrow, and let's have another great day. I'm so sorry again, this video is so long, but you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.